I'm Frank Stanisci. This is CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me on CFL Talk on this beautiful Monday night, the one, the only, Sportsnet's own David Morassutti, the suit. Oh, wait, there's already somebody on TV that has that name, that nickname.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to get trademarked here. Thanks for that one, Frank.
Oh, no, I know what to call you.
Lawyer's calling me tomorrow. Thank you.
No, I know what to call you. I got your nickname. It just came to me. Because you're everything when it comes to sports writing. So I'll call you Tutti.
Ah, there you go. Get a little Italian.
You like that? You like that?
I'll take that one. I'll take that one.
So, what do I get? Oh my goodness.
Don't ask me. I'm not good with nicknames.
Well, they in the dialect they used to call my father Stanisci in the Barese dialect. Okay, so some interesting moves since we were here last week.
Just a couple, not many. Just a couple.
Do you want to do the NFL first, or do you want to do the couple?
Let's do the NFL first.
Okay, let's do the NFL first. So I called it 30 to 27 for the Bengals, and the Bengals bungled it. They burrowed a hole for themselves they couldn't get out of in their own end zone, and they were given multiple chances. The LA team could not ram the ball into the end zone. It just wasn't meant to be. And all they did, they got within the end zone, and all I heard from that team from Los Angeles was la, 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 la. Then finally they put it in the end zone. It was really a boring game.
Didn't have the same flair as the other one, that's for sure.
It made the season, had the season crawl to a slow. It was a typical what we're accustomed to in NFL games. And that's, of course, considering that what we saw before that in of course, the conference finals and even, a couple of the division playoffs. The excitement was palpable here. Not so much, but really, this is one of those times, David, I think, where we see the old axiom where they say offenses sell tickets, defenses win championships.
Yeah, no, and that's where I thought the LA had the clear advantage, because that was a defense capable of making the plays to win a championship. The Bengals showed over the last couple weeks that their defense was also capable. I just felt that LA had the better reputation, the better playmakers, and in the end, it proved to be right.
It did.
It's funny because a big complaint about that game was how come Aaron Donald wasn't named MVP?
Yeah. He's been waiting a long time, 13 years in the NFL. He finally gets the...
Yeah. Gets the point at the ring, and he's the one that finished the game too. Like he put the staple on.
He did.
I wasn't complaining that it was Cooper Kupp because
shut up.
I kind of
oh, shut up.
I kind of put money on it.
I'm sick and tired of hearing about Cooper Kupp. God, every time I talk to David, he goes, "Oh, if Cooper Kupp had caught that pass, I would have made about $25." I said, "Okay, oh well." And calls me again the next week. God darn it, if that Cooper Kupp had made that catch, all he needed was another 2 yards, and I would have made. Boy, oh boy, did he let you down this week? Please tell me he didn't.
Well, he won MVP, so he didn't.
Oh, okay. So did you get something for that?
Oh yes,
Oh,
he
good
was.
for you.
He was. It was a plus 750 for him to win MVP.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It wasn't good at first. It wasn't looking good first. He scored a touchdown.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
At that point, Aaron Donald was ahead for me. But then he got that second touchdown when he was getting penalized every third play because the Bengals didn't know how to cover him.
Yeah.
And
The officiating, well, go ahead. They didn't know how to
the
cover 'em. I don't
officiating
wanna
was
interrupt you. I didn't
typical.
wanna interrupt you. Go ahead. Get
But
on.
what I will say about Cooper Cup is they were comparing his postseason to Larry Fitzgerald when Larry Fitzgerald took the Arizona Cardinals to the Super Bowl. Very comparable in terms of production, but through a whole season, this is
Yeah, that's where I'm.
arguably the most dominant season you've ever seen from a receiver.
Yeah, and it would have been it is hard. It is hard to beat a quarterback in that category. Even a running back has more, um, well, at least in the old days. I don't know about any running backs don't have the same respect they used to have back in the day. Um, yeah, no, he has been a marvel throughout the whole playoffs. And he made it's not the yardage, it's not the amount of touchdowns, it is the plays he makes when his team really needs them. We talk about great players and most valuable players and players, era players. We talk about how great the elite players are. And this guy does what every great player needs to do, and that is make the big play at the big time. Like, why is Franco Harris known? The immaculate for reception, right? So, I don't know if there's going to be a nickname for that last reception, but I think it'll have something to do with stubbornness because that football did not want to go in the end zone.
You know, I felt bad for the Bengals in a way because they I expected a little bit more out of them, especially Jamar Chase.
Oh,
He had that one incredible catch in the first half that kind of kick-started things for them, and then it did. They went away from that. I understand Jalen Ramsey. He got screwed in that first touchdown, by the way, just in case anyone.
you talking about the yank?
Yep, clear yank.
Look like the play we saw with the Argos this year,
Oh yeah,
right? It's the same play. Grab the helmet.
a little. Oh, he went, but people thought he got beat. And when he didn't get beat, he got pulled down.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
allowed to do that.
Replay showed that. But at the beginning, during the play, looking from the quarterback's vantage point, you didn't see it as much, right?
Yeah, but I think where the Bengals really missed out was on those one-on-one opportunities where you get Jamar Chase single with Jalen Ramsey, and that's a totally different story. I actually saw in the last play that Burrow, we talked about this, ranks, but that last play that Burrow, he tried to make something out of nothing when he was getting wrapped up. If
Yes.
his offensive line gave him an extra, I say even 3 seconds, maybe 3 seconds is a little too much, 2 seconds, even, in some miraculous case, one, Jamar Chase was wide open for a
And
deep
not
throw.
only, but Chase wasn't the guy that almost caught it, right? I think that was the running back there that was out there. If he had got some air under that ball or thrown it an extra, I'm going to say 2 feet, it would have been a reception and a first down. And but that's the name of football, right? That's what made there were so many times that you know there were so many times that they just couldn't get that extra half a yard. There were a lot of plays where the Bengals, a half a yard here, a foot there, they would have been in much better shape, you know. But still, there's no excuse here. The LA Rams won fair and square. Yeah, they had a bad call against them. They got lucky in a couple of calls. But you know what? In the US, they don't worry too much about the replays as much as we do in the Canadian Football League for whatever, however you want to compare the two. I kind of like the idea that the bad plays get caught, but even with how some might suggest, in comparatively speaking, that the CFL is over officiated or over video officiated. They both missed the same call in the playoffs, the one where the player grabs the helmet, and so that's not something that's helped or hindered either way. The biggest thing that I can say is the quarterback for LA spent 12, 13 years in Detroit, played 3 playoff games, lost them all in that many years, and then comes to LA, wins 3 playoffs games, and then he plays in the Super Bowl. And Matthew Stafford, I didn't have as much respect for him as I do now, but that goes without saying. Winning a Super Bowl gets you respect.
Well, not according to Richard Sherman. I don't know if you saw what he said. He
Yeah.
said not a Hall of Famer.
So what? He's not a Hall of Famer yet. He could still be a Hall of Famer. And you know what? Is there a better definition, David, of a comeback player? Maybe a never been player becomes one. Like that guy spent a whole career, a lifetime on a team that went nowhere. And he comes to the LA Rams and proves that, you know, quarterbacks are important. They're the best. They're great, right? But it does help to have a decent team to play for, and I think he proves that point. Um, these were two teams who didn't take penalties, right? And then all of a sudden in this game, and not only in this game, at the end of the game, all of a sudden penalties are flying there. The flags were flying everywhere. It seemed almost every play.
Yeah, that made it messy, right? I think that game people expected more because of the offenses. The offense
Right.
were hitting it. We're missing on a lot of plays. Like, I felt like I expected a little bit more out of both teams. I expected more actually out of the Rams than I did the Bengals. I feel like the Bengals offense is getting there, but it wasn't there yet. The Rams, I mean, what they did against the Bucks, I expected a little bit more out of them. But this was a game I think both coaches didn't want to push the envelope too much. They didn't want to make the gutsy play call that would come back to bite them, right?
They made one. One got made, and it did come back to bite them.
It did.
The interception, right, in the end zone.
Yeah. But other than like there wasn't really like that, there was some suspect play calling, but it wasn't like one play that ruined the game for one team.
No, no, no. And a lot of credit has to go to the defenses,
Yeah.
even, you know, I gotta say that our defensive friends who saw that game are probably throwing stuff at the TV because some of those penalties, if you're a defender, if you're a DB or spent any time being a DB, I saw beautiful defensive technique that was called for holding. And it really wasn't holding. Yeah, there was like, it wasn't a grab. He was just making sure he had the guys. He knew where the body was, so that when he was looking this is what I saw. I'm not a defensive back. I pro ball, never played pro ball, so I'm just looking at what I've learned watching what I like to say as closely as I can, where you have the body of the player in your hands, but you're not really holding him. You just want to look at the ball and you want to make sure that when he moves, it's the ball's coming, you know where he is, and you make sure he doesn't that last second when the ball's coming loses you. So I saw a couple of penalties like that at the end, which I didn't like. I don't know if it's my inner defender, but I thought the defenders there played really well, and that to me is why the offenses, didn't really look that good. They weren't given much. They weren't given much at all. The bend not break thing. They bent over backwards both defenses, and never
Yeah.
mind Donald.
I mean, that's the thing, right? I think when you look at the way that, how both teams got there, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
know, Cincinnati what gave me pause, and when everybody, with the 3-on-1 in that interview with, uh, with Trevor Harris, everyone picking the Bengals. The main reason why I picked the Rams wasn't even for their offense; it was for their defense. Like this, that was the reason why I gave them the edge. Right, the offense put them over the top, but it was their defense that I was like, they got that offensive line for Cincinnati was vulnerable. Cincinnati, Joe Burrow is not going to get the opportunities to really get out
I
of the
thought it was gonna
pocket.
be I thought it was gonna be one of those, coming out stories. It didn't happen.
It's too bad. It would have been nice if we had, but he'll get there. That's I think people need to understand is Joe Burrow will get there.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
but
he
he
said in the post interviews, "Well, we're planning on coming back a lot in the next few years." If he doesn't make it back there, he'll be really disappointed because
well, if you want my early look, I'm thinking that the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs are
they
gonna.
all have something to say about it.
But I will say it was refreshing also to have a Super Bowl that didn't have the usual suspects in it as well.
Oh, absolutely, and this year marks a new generation. Drew Brees gone, Brady gone, you know, the, Aaron Rodgers moving probably. Can Aaron Rodgers do what Brady did, and that is pick the right team to go to with a tweak here, a tweak there, and a friend coming along with him. Um, you know, put himself into a Super Bowl game. I don't know. I don't know. Um, it's a new generation of quarterbacks. That's what we do know in the NFL. It's what we talk about in the Canadian Football League. Is that's what we're looking for. How much how much I love Trevor Harris and Zach Caleros, and I go back with them, going back to 2012, watching them as youngsters up close, practicing and playing. Obviously, um, you know, uh, we're going to need to see some new quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League, and the NFL has theirs started. You mentioned the two, Buffalo and KC. They've got two tremendous young quarterbacks that are going to give Burrow something to go through for sure. I agree with you.
Well, and you made that point, Frank, that the AFC really has the
Right now, yeah,
right
absolutely.
now they have the up and comers, and the NFC's kind of lagging behind, and I would agree with that. I think if you're an NFC team, focus on your defense because you're going up against some really tough offenses. Especially, I would suggest any defensive. If you're going to make any improvements on the defense, look at what the Rams did. It's the front seven. That's where I think you'll get the most benefit if you're going to want to be successful. Because you know what, Matthew Stafford, a good quarterback. I think if he sticks in LA, he'll make his case to be in the running for.
Let's not forget that, eh? Not just about Matthew Stafford. As good as the AFC quarterbacks are, it's the NFC that won the Super Bowl.
Well, that's the thing,
So,
right? And they had. I said, even if San Fran made it to that Super Bowl, I have a lot of respect for that San Fran defense and what they can do.
oh, absolutely. They did everything that San Fran didn't have anything to do with the quarterback.
Right? They got there in spite of their quarterback, as my friend
Many
who's
have
a
said
49er
that. Many have said that. I've said it. I even before I heard it, and I believe that. Every football team, every quarterback, every one of them's like that until they win a championship,
Mhm.
right? It's all about if you're a quarterback and you don't win a championship, you're just not a great quarterback. That's a horrible thing to say, Frank. But you know what? I think everybody thinks that, right? You're not a great quarterback. Why can no one argue that Tom Brady is the GOAT, as a football player, not just a quarterback? All the championships he's won. Because that's the check mark that every quarterback needs to be in the hall. I think that's why it hurts so much when a certain quarterback in Miami, he deserves to be in there, and people a little backhanded, stuff. Well, he hasn't won a Super Bowl.
I think if a quarterback dominates, it's so hard to win a championship because, again, I still think it's a team that wins the championship, not the quarterback. I look, Tom Brady won it with two teams. He proved that he can go from team to team and win it. But Tom Brady also had two really good teams, two
Yeah,
good coaches get him. It wasn't like he took a team that was terrible. The Bucks weren't a great team. They needed that quarterback to take them over the top, but they had the pieces there to get them on their way.
Well, a couple ex CFL players were having a little debate, and I was just watching it. Right, Donald, best defender in football history, best ever. I have a hard time, he's dominant, but I've lived long enough where I've seen a lot of generational defenders, right?
Mhm.
A lot of them, going back to the Dallas Cowboys, even, of course, Minnesota, the Purple People Eaters. So I've seen a lot of great defenders, and I just think it's the there is no objectivity when it comes to making statements like that. It's all subjective.
Recency bias as well plays
Yeah,
into it.
absolutely. That's the subjectivity that is the problem.
I think about, like, Aaron Donald is a phenomenal player. He's won a lot of Defensive Player of the Year awards. He's a very, I think in this, in the recent years, he's been the more dominant defensive players. I think TJ Watt is in that category. There's so many of them. Like, there, you have to think of, like, who was really, the unique talent that could, really do it all. Um, I can't really put my finger, like, people will say like Michael Strahan, because he owns the sack record.
Yep, yep.
There's a lot of that, but I think, like, if it's just really hard, because I guarantee if Aaron Donald never won this Super Bowl, if he did not win,
Oh,
I don't know if people are going to be, as you say, same with the quarterback. I don't know if you're going to give Aaron Donald the same amount of praise. I always thought Aaron Donald was dominant, but I don't know if people were ready to give him this level of fame.
yeah, no, no, that's a given. And I don't have a problem e I don't have a problem not talking about the best ever, because as far as I'm concerned, it's a big enough it's a big enough, it's a big enough compliment to say, if you could say that Aaron Donald is the best defender of his generation. If you can say that about, if you love Aaron Donald and you say he is the greatest defender in his time, there are a lot of defenders still out there that you could say, now hold on a second. I'm not really sure that he is the very best. That you could make a case for at least two or three other guys. You know what I mean? So there's no shame, and you're not shortchanging Donald by saying, by not discussing it over time. You can discuss it over time, but then it becomes subjective, not objective. So it's easy to pick one, but to really, how do you prove that Aaron Donald's better than Lawrence Taylor? Well, you put statistics beside each other, and then what happens? As a statistical guy, that, oh well, when Lawrence Taylor was a defender, and you get into all these factors.
Mhm.
So now what happens? Like I said, it becomes subjective, not objective. But objectively, Donald winning a championship brings him high in the class of defenders of his generation, of this generation.
Yeah, no, definitely.
They've got to do better to be better than Donald, no doubt about it, especially now that he's won a Super Bowl, because he was very emotional, because that meant a lot. That means everything to him. And just imagine, just imagine, we get a chance to talk to football players because of what we do. And I can tell you, there are a lot of football players that are playing in the NFL today who watched him do this and know he was getting his, and they were just drooling for that opportunity, because every football player who doesn't have a ring, that's what they're out there for. Yeah, the money seems to be really important. I get it. But down deep, down really deep, it's that championship, that ring, that saying you're the best. And no, being like Aaron Donald being the best defender of his generation without a ring would not make him as happy as him having that ring. I think that ring probably means more than that other stuff, because there's something about, being a champion that is indescribable, and turns men into crying babies. Turns them into crying babies. It's that, and it's that much, it's that important, it's that emotional. The love of the game, everything that the game means, getting that ring. So I'm happy for Donald. I'm glad he got it. In a way, it's not too bad. Burrow, whether he does or he doesn't, because you never know how many more times you get to go to the Super Bowl, right? So I'm happy it happened this way for Donald, because he's been entertaining the idea of retiring, and it's great to see a guy who committed so much to the game, put so much heart into the game, was so successful. That last little thing, the most important thing, that little thing he can put on his finger, he gets to wear that, and good for him. I'm happy for him in that regard. It was a good ending. It just wasn't one that I thought of hard enough.
Yeah, and I think that you know we're gonna have a probably different conversation within a few years where maybe another player comes
Yes.
along. It may take a little longer, but I think we'll get to that point. And it's the way that it's the way that these conversations always go. I mean, you just brought up Lawrence Taylor. I couldn't think of another player better than him ever. But everyone's gonna probably put Aaron Donald in that conversation because he put that one thing on the trophy cabinet that he's been trying to get and has been unable to get.
Yep, it's a key. So LA wins. Beautiful stadium, by the way. I love the scoreboard. Holy moly.
There's a reason why it cost $7,000 a ticket to go to that Super Bowl.
$4 billion to build that stadium. You know where the Giants and and the Jets play.
I went there. It is
Oh,
nothing like
but
this.
that cost $1 billion. The Dallas Cowboys home field. What is it? 2 billion, 1.8 or 1.9 or something like that?
Oh my god! I mean, they print
Four.
he prints
Over
money.
here. Four. You only saw
That
two.
I think the one I think the I think Cowboys Stadium or now AT&T Stadium.
Yes.
I think it was 1.5
Oh,
billion.
1.5? Okay. But
Yeah,
4 million. 4. 4.
yeah,
4 million. Good
billion.
Lord.
You mean
And
4 billion?
when I heard that number, I said, yeah, you know what? All those people who keep saying that Toronto's not getting an NFL team. Are you not kidding me? I get it. They're not getting an NFL team. If whoever owns the team is going to have to put in 2 million for the team and another 4 million for a stadium. Well, by the time they get it, it'll probably be about 4 million. Um, you know, I don't know if well, the Toronto economy could handle it. I think Toronto could handle it. I just it's
All
cold
depends on
water
where
on the idea for sure.
it depends on who's asking for the money and where's the money have to come from. I do not
Yeah, and it has to be an individual. There has to be a face of the franchise, financially speaking.
because you even if you're
MLSC can't do it.
no, they're not allowed to. You have to have and the NFL does not allow corporations to own a team. Now, Larry Tannenbaum,
But he
he,
doesn't have the money by himself.
no, but he could have partners, but then the partners would have to name him as the owner.
But they would have to be individuals, right? They couldn't be corporate interests, or
I
could
don't.
they?
I think you're right on that. This goes well beyond kind of the.
Yeah. Well, there's like
But I do know. Yeah, the reason why the Bills were always looking at like if the Bills were going to come to Toronto, there's a reason why John Bon Jovi's name came
yeah.
into the ownership running, right? It
He
was
wanted he wanted to be the face of the franchise.
right. There's a reason why it's the Pagula family who
Yes.
have that own the Bills
Right.
because they have the wealth to do it, and they also have other sports interests on top of now they have the Sabres and the Bills. So yeah,
Right.
it's just the cost and how big they have to be. And now it's not just a stadium; you need everything around it, right? It's a whole complex. It's a community.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
And so the question arises. Anyway, this is a good segue. So now, having figured out that Toronto not getting an NFL team has been hammered into my head a little deeper. I guess it's important that the Argos work out. And I guess what they did this week, it's been a while since they've had the kind of star power imported to the team, like Andrew Harris last week, and now Brandon Banks this week. Two guys that wear the three letters proudly, and no one can doubt that these are guys who historically have been MVPs, MOPs, all the P's you want them, all the P's you want them to be. I don't know if this will move the needle attendance wise.
You know what? It certainly drew a lot more interest. I think when you're looking at Argos fans, they've always had complaints about certain moves, or they hadn't really gone like they made big moves last season. I think like Charleston Hughes was likely the biggest one, but they hadn't made that you know superstar. Like when you think of like a superstar, you think of a guy that's you know an MVP. So they got two of those
Yeah,
in
in
a
a matter
week.
of a week. Yep.
You know, that's like that's and I think the cherry on top of it. I don't know if this was. I always wonder how much of it plays a factor, but to get one from your biggest rival, the player who at times has been the biggest pain in your rear end for, it's what, a decade
Yep.
or at least a decade. Yeah,
8 years.
I think you're going to get a little bit of attention from is what it is. It's
Good golly.
how
Yeah.
can you pull the fans that haven't been you know willing to come to give them that little extra push, right? How can you get the fans who are wondering who to put on a CFL, a back of the Argos jersey? Do they have that name recognition?
And another thing, and this is something that the Argos have not had part of their buzz, and that is, have they ever? Can you remember? I know you're a young man. I know I'm old, so we won't count me in this. We'll talk about David's lifetime.
Okay.
Think about your lifetime, and think about. Can you ever remember a season where the Toronto Argonauts were favored to finish first before the season started?
Ooh.
Think about it. I got my answer.
I'm thinking in my lifetime, I always think of I grew up in in the time where the Montreal Alouettes were the
Dominant team.
dynasty of the 2000s. The Argos were the shame of the CFL, or at least the shame of the city for those Bart Andrus
We just
years.
weren't a great team.
Uh, I think the closest is when they won the Grey Cup with when Pinball was the head
but
coach.
that but that was something again, yeah, when Pinball won, I'm trying to think, were
It was
they the
'04.
favorite going into the season? I don't think they were. I
Not
think it
going
was
into the
another
season,
one of those
maybe the
seasons.
season
It's
after.
another one of those seasons where the Argos play really well, get to the game, and win the championship. That has been their calling card. 2017. Let's not go that far back. We'll go to 2017. They made it. They made it. They did. They were a 500 football team. I think they were 9-9. Right? I think they were 9-9.
Mhm.
I don't think they were 10-8. I think they were 9-9, if I remember correctly. And they went into the playoffs, and nobody really believed that they could make it to the Grey Cup. They won by the skin of their teeth against Saskatchewan. On a kick of the ball out of the end zone, if I remember correctly, and then they end up winning the Grey Cup. 2012, same thing. They weren't a dominant team; they were a great team. And please, what I'm talking about, and I want to make this clear because I don't want to irritate Argo fans, because I got to run into them all the time. They weren't a dominant team coming out of training camp, and they have never been a dominant training camp in this generation. Do you know this will be the first time that people are going to expect the Argos to finish first, expect the Argos to win the Grey Cup? That's something that maybe will sell tickets. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there. that that from the beginning of the season, oh good, there's going to be a team here. That I want to see what it's like when they have a team which they can't say we want to compete. They can't just say they want to compete. They can't just say we'll be competitive. They will look like a team that will win. That's who the Argos have a chance of being. And I'm dying to see how Toronto sports fans react to that dynamic, one that I don't think they've had in a very long time,
So
not since Rocket Ishmael.
yeah. So funny enough, if you're looking at I'm on Bodog right now.
Okay.
This is I don't know if it's been updated yet, but they're tied for set. They're like the Blue Bombers are favored to win the Grey Cup, plus
Right.
200. Then it's like a three-way tie between Hamilton, Saskatchewan, and Toronto
That's
for
good.
this. So the question I have here is, does that change? I don't think it's change. I don't think people are ready to go all in on the Argos, and the reason, and I hate, and an Argos fan's gonna, some are gonna agree with me, and some are gonna fight this. It's the one position that has.
Oh gosh. Oh, of course. This is like them or hate them. This is the like them or hate them part of
This
the program.
this is it. A lot of people like McLeod Bethel Thompson. Frank, you and I have had,
We love them.
we see a different side of him that even some fans don't see. Fans are starting to see a little bit more of it the more that he's able to get himself out there. But
Delivering is the issue.
it's he can do. People can say all they want about what he does on the field, off the field, and how the teammates love him. At the end of the day, when you're asking the odds makers, are you going to put money on the Argos to be the top team? They're going to say, who's their quarterback?
Yeah. And you know what? Our guest last week, Trevor Harris, he exemplified the topic that we're talking about right now. The subject matter. He said, I know people don't think I'm a great quarterback because I haven't won a championship. Right? I haven't won in the playoffs. I've won, right? So I don't think Bethel Thompson's any different than Trevor Harris. McLeod Bethel Thompson. Sorry, I should say all three names out of respect. Is no different than Trevor Harris. Trust me, he's a very proud guy. Why do you think he pushed that cameraman? Why do you think he did something that, to me, in my mind, right here and heart, is not something that he would do? That's how hard he took that loss. So, these are human beings who care. But having said that, I care too. But the reality is, unfortunately, as a commentator, a reporter, the question I always have is, so what have you done? We talked about Donald, right? It's the same thing. Why does Donald feel he needs to win a championship? Because everything he does is accentuated by that ring. Without that ring, everything he's done means less. I was going to say meaningless, but it's not meaningless. It just doesn't mean as much.
On top of that, if you ask Aaron Donald if he never won that Super Bowl and he were to retire, he will say, no, I think I had a good career, but it wasn't to what I wanted because he wanted that Super Bowl. And
That's it.
you can ask McLeod Bethel Thompson. We always ask him about how he felt about his game. He will do one of two things. He always talk about a teammate and how they did because that's the type of person he is. But it's always about the winning that, getting the job done. That's the most important thing to him. I think that's something that doesn't get talked enough about him. Like he's someone that really wants to do it because he knows that's what his biggest what's the word I'm looking for?
Detractors.
Yeah, like those who his biggest critics. That's the one thing they can always hang on him.
Yeah, and
He
that's
has
the one
no.
that hurts. That's the one that he wears. That's the one that's the hardest suit to take off.
Yeah,
It's the hardest smell to get off your body because it really stinks. I want to be a winner. I don't want to be the guy who can't win. And notice I'm not using another word because I don't believe in that word because it's a team sport.
and look, they just added a guy who also has that label. who's
Absolutely.
really worn that label, maybe more than people think he should. He hadn't been so many times. How many times Brandon Banks won the Hamilton, Tiger Cats a Grey Cup until it got taken away by a penalty.
Absolutely.
Imagine,
And it affected that sensitive young man in a way that no one should be affected.
I always wonder where Brandon Banks and the Hamilton team would be if that penalty never happened.
It's a whole different life.
I think right now Hamilton fans are are preparing their pitchforks and
He had a legitimate beef. I said it then, I say it now. Um, but you know what? It's what sports are all about, right? I mean, you could make that catch, but the ball gets tipped. It's that's Aaron Donald was a hero because he made a good play, right? And he made a good play at the very last play of the game. Boy, he must feel good. I mean, when he the relief that he had of getting that ring and to know that he had a lot to do with it. That's what Brandon Banks was denied. And the next year he had another call that was questionable that I questioned. But he's a young man who's been, hard luck is the best way to describe it. And I think Brandon Banks coming to Toronto, we're going to get a chance to talk to him tomorrow. Um, in the press conference, and I got to tell you, David, he's in the right place because I think there's a guy in the organization here with the Argos who can speak to Brandon Banks in a way that Brandon will understand. And the guy I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about, Pinball Clemens, will get in his ear, will get in his mind, and will get in his heart, and his body will belong to the Toronto Argonauts and football, and he will play his best football. That's what I'm predicting because Pinball Clemens is going to inspire him to forget the past and look ahead toward the future and imagine winning a championship. Forget the ones he didn't win and think about the one that he can win. And
yeah.
I like the idea that he's here with the Toronto Argonauts. It's the team we cover. I think it's going to be a great story if he can do it. If Brandon Banks can be effective this season, be a part of becoming one of the reasons why the Argos make it to the Grey Cup and maybe win it, along with Harris, give McLeod Bethel Thompson a chance to make some of the plays that he hasn't made till now.
Hmm.
You know, um, it's going to be interesting. Am I pulling for Toronto? Of course I am. It's a team I cover. It's the local team. Great to follow the team and watch a championship be born. I've had a chance to see that a few times. I was in the locker room when they won the championship in 2017. I was in the locker room in 2019 when Winnipeg won the championship. And I got to tell you, watching grown men act like children in a positive way is one of the most enjoyable things to see because we spend so much time negative stuff happening in life. Needless to say, the crap that we've gone through the past couple of years. It's just an honor to be a part of that. And it would be a big honor to watch this kid, basically get what he earned a long time ago, and that is a championship. More than it be with the Argonauts, I'd like to see it happen for Brandon Banks.
I don't know if we have any Hamilton Tiger Cats fans watching the show. I don't know if any of them have thrown up at any point of this conversation. I would like to know from them if, and this is an if, I'm not, if the Argos and Brandon Banks were to make it to the Grey Cup, are you cheering for the Argos to win? How far does your loyalty go? Your hatred for the Argos go? Would
Oh
you
my
cheer against
gosh.
Brandon Banks winning that title?
Uh, and let's say they don't want to answer that question. How about this question? How about if I ask this question? Would you have a tiny little smile in your heart watching Brandon Banks, being a Cat fan, finally lift that trophy, knowing what Brandon went through, knowing yourself as a Cat fan, how you were denied at least once an opportunity to win a championship on a call that shouldn't have happened? And you get to see the guy who was literally at the front line of that bad break actually lift the trophy. I think there'll be a couple of Cat fans that they won't brag about it. Some of them might actually post it and say, I'm happy for Brandon Banks because they know what he's been through. And what I like about CFL football fans is, um, as brutal as Cat fans can be, some, I know how big a heart most of them have and how kind they are and how much they care about their players. So, to answer your question, I think it will happen.
It'd be very very interesting because I think it's just one of the you see it, you've seen it at times. I mean, look, we've seen Argos players move on to other teams, and
We've interviewed them at the Grey Cup.
right, not to the same extent that uh, maybe Hamilton fans have been through, but every I always wonder with Saskatchewan, would they cheer for Blue Bomber? Were Saskatchewan fans happy to see Zach Claros win that Grey Cup, knowing what
It's a
he
good
went through,
question.
right? Yeah, that's something I think doesn't get talked about that much, right? We,
Well, we're not there. I think I'm trying to remember the first Grey Cup. I think there were some fans in Saskatchewan that were happy for him, and I do believe some people were happy for him because he was with them when he ended up with the really, what was projected to be possibly a career ending, concussion, which he claimed the whole time wasn't a concussion, it was a neck problem. So the fans there, they have hearts. The Saskatchewan fans can be as angry and brutal as the Cat fans are with Toronto. The Saskatchewan fans in Winnipeg, they go after each other equally. So when you talk about a Saskatchewan player winning a Grey Cup in Winnipeg, you're more than it's more than appropriate for you to suggest that maybe there's not a lot of support for that in Saskatchewan. But you'd be surprised how much there would be.
yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you can put your differences aside if it means that you see somebody accomplish something that they worked their whole life for and have struggled with. So I think sometimes you can take the personal side and just feel happy for the individual and leave the team part out of it. I think it's possible. It wouldn't surprise me. Again, I'm not suggesting that I'm rooting for it, but if Toronto were to pull it off, you don't think the Hamilton Tiger Cats? I mean, most likely. I mean, the chance of the Argos and Tiger Cats playing in the Grey Cup are very, 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 very unlikely. The Tiger Cats would likely tweet out something to congratulate a Brandon Banks, a
Sure they
Jagger
would.
Davis, the
Sure they
former
would. The
players.
organization for sure. They
So
wouldn't it's not like a real happy moment for them, but it would be a class act that the Hamilton Tiger Cats, they're a class act organization run by some wonderful football people. The owner is, Bob Young I joked with him during the Grey Cup that he was like an 8-year-old. He was like a kid. He behaved like a young boy in his celebration of having the Grey Cup there. His enthusiasm was incredible. Listen, don't get it wrong. He was not happy with the way the Grey Cup ended. I wasn't there when they lost. I wasn't beside him. So, but I can tell you, these people, they love their football and they love their Hamilton Tiger Cats, and I think they have that love of the Cats. I think extends beyond the players that go to other teams. I think they still care about those players. There's a lot of number 16s
yeah.
in Hamilton.
That's the other thing too, right? How many have bought? This was a player that we talk about CFL fans really saying, I have a hard time buying a jersey. Hamilton Tiger Cats fans have been spoiled to have
Oh,
a guy like Brandon Banks,
absolutely.
Jeremiah Mazzoli, um, You
Yeah.
know, Simone Lawrence. Even in Winnipeg with Andrew Harris. You don't think Winnipeg fans were equally upset to see Andrew Harris leave?
And
You
to accentuate the point you're making, to have CFL players that are really good staying with the team. Sorry, for a
Yeah.
prolonged period. I want to make sure people understand that that's the point you're trying to make.
We're also at the point of the show I want to make sure we don't leave anything out because I know we only have a few minutes left.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Well, I just wanted to make sure your point was
Yeah, no, for sure.
because these are players who have been at the center of the hopes and aspirations of their teams. Harris in Winnipeg, you know, Brandon Banks in in Hamilton. Dylan Wynn came from Toronto, but he was only here for a short time. But then there's a pretty good player there that re-signed with him. That was an Argo for a long time, and he went there. There's a coach of Winnipeg that was a Hamilton Tiger Cat, and he was a proud Tiger Cat, and he'd never leave, and he went to the Argos. So it's happened before. So
Many
it's not like it's never happened. The QEW it runs in both directions. As much as both sides don't like when it the specific lane out of town, they're not big fans of that.
hey,
None of them, but it is part of the game.
hey, look at Alden Darby. I don't know if he'd ever say he'd play for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but he's going there.
Yep.
You know, it's when you only have 9 teams, and some players like to have some sort of familiarity. Being able to play in Hamilton is actually an advantage because you're close to Toronto. So if you like the area of Toronto, you're at least close by. And I'm sure Brandon Banks will like the fact that he can go to Toronto.
The
Toronto.
airport, proximity to the U.S. You could drive to the U.S. A lot of the U.S. is accessible from the metropolitan Toronto, Southern Ontario area. That QEW. In fact, Hamilton is closer to the U.S. than Toronto. So an hour, but still closer. If you're playing in Winnipeg or Saskatchewan or Calgary or Edmonton, it's a little longer drive, to get to your hometown. So basically, yeah, it's a big deal. We're lucky here in Southern Ontario, that we have those two teams, and Ottawa's not that far away, and Montreal is just another touch away from that. Here in the East Division, we're very fortunate because if we want to go watch a game anywhere in the Eastern Division, it's no more than a 6-hour drive, five
That's
hour
the
drive,
most.
right?
That's the maximum.
Right. So it's less than we'll say a 6-hour drive from Hamilton to Montreal. That's when you consider to go from Calgary to Edmonton is a clip, and then never mind everywhere else.
Oh yeah,
Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. Now you're getting into 12 hours. It's not an easy drive. And if you're an American and you want to go down south, it's about getting on an airplane and stuff. So it's a very enjoyable experience for us here. We don't realize how lucky we are when it comes to being fans of the CFL and access to the four teams, in this country in the East. So
definitely.
it's a privilege to have those teams around here. So I'm dying to see if tickets start to sell. If the Argos figure out a way how to promote it, that's the next thing I want to see. I want to see how good they are at selling tickets. They've got the players to do it now.
Yep, and they won't have the COVID restrictions. I mean, cross our fingers, knock on wood. The COVID won't be an excuse. Hopefully, this time around either.
Yeah, yeah. And we've said it seems like the common thread every season is, well, I don't know how we're going to be affected by all the bad things that happened last year or the year before that or the year before that or the 6 years. But you know what I mean? There's so much bad to overcome for the Toronto Argonauts. Hopefully, this is a good sign. And finally, their plan is to bring some high profile players in here, and let's hope it works out because there's nothing I want more than to see BMO filled.
Well, and hopefully next week, I guess we'll talk because I know we're out of time. Next week, we'll talk about the other. I forgot the other edition they made. That
Kelly,
yeah, we'll talk about that one next week because I do want to get into that.
absolutely. So, former Buffalo Bills nephew. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Frank.
My pleasure. For David Morassutti, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk Aaron live Mondays at 9 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time.